Good morning, everyone. It gives me great pleasure today with this Sharewise webinar to introduce Chris Giles, the TD, the Technical Director, that is, of Havilah Resources, which is an Adelaide-based minerals project generator active in the highly prospective Curnamona Province in northeastern South Australia. They've delineated two substantial JORC copper-gold-cobalt resources in Kalkaroo and their Mutooroo projects. These have been favoured on these have been partnered on very favourable terms with Sandfire and Hillgrove Resources, respectively. This has given Havilah funding to carry out further exploration on numerous other promising prospects in their tenements, all of which are also looking highly prospective. Anyway, on that, I will let Chris introduce and describe Havilah's really interesting business model. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Anthony. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending, and thank you for your interest. I'll just share my screen and bring up my presentation. That visible to everybody, I trust. Yeah, so today I'd like to tell you the Havilah Resources story of how we go about prospecting, proving and partnering on our mineral projects in South Australia. If we have to describe ourselves, we call ourselves a multi-commodity minerals project generator. And that's because in our exploration out in the Curnamona Province in the northeast of South Australia, we've been very successful in finding a whole variety of different metals, some strategic, some critical, as listed here, the copper, gold, cobalt, moly, uranium, tungsten, even sulfur. So I'll tell you a bit more about that as we go along. Now, we're working in the Curnamona Province, which is in the northeast of South Australia, right up against the New South Wales South Australian border, about 5 hours drive up the road from Adelaide towards Broken Hill. We have an extensive tenement holding there, the slightly darker coloured areas there. It's an area of very high geological prospectivity, on a par with the Gawler Craton and the Mount Isa Cloncurry block, which are the main copper producing areas in Australia. The area to the north, in particular, is very prospective for large strata-bound mineralised systems, very similar to the Central African copper belt, Zambian, DRC copper deposits. It's grossly underexplored, and that's mainly because of lack of outcrop, but also to some extent been ignored by the major companies over the years. And that's good for us because it means there's plenty of new potential discovery opportunities. And as I mentioned, there's a multi-commodity minerals endowment. We've got a variety of valuable strategic and critical minerals, quite apart from the gold and the copper. And one of the best aspects, it's very favourable logistics. As I said, it's 5 hours drive up the road, main highway, Sydney Highway from Adelaide. It's just out of Broken Hill. It's outback pastoral country, so there are no particular environmental issues there. And believe it or not, there's quite ample underground saline water suitable for processing. And we're in proximity to the main highway and transcontinental railway, which runs through our tenement block, as you'll see here. Now, I'll just draw your attention to a couple of deposits here, the Kalkaroo deposit, copper deposit, and Mutooroo copper deposit. Kalkaroo is about 90 minutes drive out of Broken Hill, and Mutooroo is about 40 minutes drive. So I'll be telling you a bit more about those two copper projects as we go through the slides. So two projects. Firstly, Kalkaroo. And Kalkaroo is one of the larger undeveloped open pit copper gold deposits in Australia. And although I've done a lot of drilling over the years, the true size of the deposit is still not fully defined. And we're partnering there with Sandfire, who are completing a very large US $70 million value pre-feasibility study, which they have scheduled to be completed in the second half of financial year 28. And from their point of view, they're doing the study because Kalkaroo, they feel, has the potential to be perhaps a substantial copper mining development for them in Australia. Our other project, Mutooroo, is smaller but higher grade. The resource grade is 1.53% copper. And we partnered there with Havilah Resources, and that's a very novel sort of partnership, which I'll talk about. Hillgrove operate the very successful Curnamona 2 copper mine out in the Adelaide Hills. They're just turning to the Kalkaroo project transaction, a few details about that, where we partnered with Sandfire. So we signed agreements late last year and earlier this year, and that resulted in an upfront payment from Sandfire to Havilah in February of $105 million. That was the stage one payment, and that was in cash and Sandfire shares. And as I mentioned, Sandfire are well underway now to a planned 130-kilometre infill and extension drilling program at Kalkaroo, and that's to support the completion of their PFS. As part of the transaction, they've also provided Havilah with $30 million in exploration funding, which is a commitment over the next 2 years, and that's to explore the area around Kalkaroo, looking for more Kalkaroo deposits, and given that there could be a large mill there at Kalkaroo. And if the project or the PFS meets Sandfire's expectation, they have the right within 2 years to acquire an 80% direct interest in the Kalkaroo project by giving us a second or a stage two payment of $105 million. And if that eventuates, then Havilah would retain a 20% interest, and the development funding for that would be arranged by Sandfire and repaid from our share of cash flow. So moving on. So far, Sandfire have made great progress on the partnership there at Kalkaroo. They've built an 80-bed camp to accommodate their personnel for the PFS phase, the drilling phase. They're in process of installing a drill core processing facility. They have multiple drilling rigs planning to be on site. A couple are already there and more will be turning up, which is necessary for them to complete the 130-kilometre infill and extension drilling program they're doing on the Kalkaroo resource. Now, turning to our other copper project, Mutooroo, we're partnered there with Hillgrove. And again, we signed an agreement which is very similar in structure to the agreement with Sandfire Resources, whereby there was an upfront payment of $5 million in Hillgrove shares in May. And Hillgrove are now progressing their PFS work, and they plan to spend up to $10 million, which would include a minimum planned 5,000 metres of resource drilling. Now, if the PFS is to their satisfaction, they also have the right to acquire 80% of the Mutooroo project within 2 years by making a stage two payment of $35 million, which would be in Hillgrove shares and cash at their election. And again, Havilah will retain a 20% interest, which will be loan carried through to commercial production. And Havilah retains 100% of exploration of the surrounding areas. So Curnamona operate a very successful copper mine out in the Adelaide Hills, just 55 kilometres from Adelaide. And they have a large processing plant there, actually in this white building here, which has spare capacity, which they would like to fill. The other important feature is just off the picture here, the main Adelaide-Melbourne railway line runs past. So the concept, the partnership concept here is quite novel, really, in that they're studying the feasibility of trucking the Mutooroo massive sulphide ore all the way down the railway line to their copper mine here at Kanmantu, and then processing the ore through there with using their spare capacity, and then producing concentrate and shipping it as per normal. So that's what they're studying the feasibility of, and if it works, the numbers work, well then it offers us, or both of us actually, the potential for early development of Mutooroo, much lower capex, much lower mining footprint. So we have those two projects which are being moved along by our partners very successfully. And as far as Havilah is concerned, its own business will be driven by exploration success. So, excuse me, the map on the left is an aeromagnetic image which geologists enjoy looking at, but on that you'll see there are quite a number of prospects, all of which have very promising multiple drill intersections, and they're all within trucking distance for Kalkaroo. So Kalkaroo sits here, the Kalkaroo deposit, which Sandfire are working on, and there's 10, 20, 30 kilometre distance. And most of the prospects lie within 20 kilometres. It's all flat country. Very easy if we find something in one of these outlying areas to truck it into the Kalkaroo. But hopefully we find something big enough as a standalone. And a similar story for Mutooroo. Mutooroo lies to the south, but again, there's many prospects around that deposit which could be fed into that central hub. So Havilah is actually very well positioned to new mineral discoveries out in the Curnamona Province. And that's simply because the Curnamona Province is just so prospective. And we've got numerous high conviction prospects where we have good drill intersections and we just need to follow them up. And the good thing with the Sandfire transaction, that upfront payment, is that it's unlocked substantial exploration funds. And as every exploration geologist knows, the more funds you've got to drill, the better chance you've got of finding things. And that's the position we're in right now with Havilah in our regional exploration. And just a word about how we go about working. As I showed right at the start, the prospect-proved partnership model. We have very prospective tenement holding out in the Curnamona Province. So we prospect, we find new projects, and then once we're onto something, we do detailed drilling to try and prove it up, maybe do a certain amount of permitting work, work with the Aboriginal claimants to make that resource we've found attractive to investors. And then we seek partnerships, as we've done with Hillgrove and Sandfire. Very capable partners are able to take the project right through to development. And if we can negotiate what we call a successful deal, Havilah will retain project interests as well as monetize a certain amount of the project, and that can be returned back to our shareholders. So it's a self-reinforcing and repeating growth cycle. As we generate funds, we can do more exploration. Hopefully we find more, then we partner again, and so it goes on. Each success builds a foundation for the next stage. And I guess the most important slide, which you'd be interested in, is what is the actual investment case for Havilah in a nutshell. And I guess number one is the outstanding mineral investment exposure. We've already found 2 substantial copper deposits. We believe there's potential to find a lot more. So Havilah offers high leverage to discovery success for copper, gold, and various other critical and strategic metals out in this underexplored Curnamona Province, where we have a big footprint. We are, as I said, a multi-commodity project generator. We're advancing multiple projects, or at least I should say our partners are. We're entering into those strategic partnerships that effectively de-risk and quicken project development. That means that Havilah doesn't have to find the capital and dilute its shareholders, but it still retains a meaningful interest. And as I've just shown you in the 3P model, where project by project we're value adding, it's a scalable model. that we can repeat over and over and potentially compound the shareholder value. And our mission in life as a public company owned by our shareholders is to generate returns for our shareholders. And we are doing that by monetising our advanced projects, getting cash, shares, which we can then potentially hand back to our shareholders, and also all the while building an investment portfolio with a retained interest. So the whole presentation really can be summarised in this brief statement, where the funding that's been released from the Sandfire deal on Kalkaroo has given us the wherewithal to go out and explore and unlock the huge mineral potential of the Curnamona Province. And we're doing that by drilling, as we speak, high conviction prospects. And we think that's where the growth is going to come from Havilah, and where we can keep repeating this process of generating more projects and more wealth for our shareholders. There are some forward-looking statements, so please be aware. JORC resources, which support some of the statements I've made. And if you want more information, we're on social media. Check our website, but by all means, subscribe to our mailing list, because I'm in the habit of doing just brief Loom videos and providing other information to our shareholders, which we send out as EDMs every so often. So if you subscribe, you'll receive those, and that'll give you a little bit more information on what we're doing beyond just the ASX announcements. So that concludes my presentation, which I hope you found interesting, and certainly very happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Great, thank you, Chris. That's a really interesting update to activities so far. I did have a question though. Is given up the success Havilah has had, and if I remember back far enough, and I'll call it, you've had 3 successful transactions, and one of them was Kalkaroo twice, and Oz Minerals unfortunately got taken out before they could capitalise upon what would have been very likely a highly successful addition to their portfolio. But having said that, is Havilah itself potentially a takeover target, given its successful exploration in the Curnamona Province?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess every company's susceptible to takeover if the price is right. Havilah is a bit unique, though, in that the top 20 shareholders own about 58% of the company. And most of us, including myself, have been in there from day one for more than 20 years. And also most of us recognise the potential value in what I've just described in our exploration areas and the projects we've got. And to be truthful, I think it would take a pretty good offer to shake most of those shareholders loose, including myself. So yes, you never say no if the price was right, but I think it's got a bit to go, and we've got a lot more work to do to add more value to the company. So yes and no.
Does Sandfire and Hillgrove have any exclusivity or rights of refusal over the further exploration that you're doing?
Yep, that's sort of the detail of the transactions, which I didn't go into. But for Sandfire and the Kalkaroo area, we have what we call a strategic alliance, which I didn't describe. And that covers most of the tenements surrounding Kalkaroo, quite a large area, about 9,000 square kilometres. And Sandfire providing us $30 million purely for exploration on those tenements over the next 2 years under our strategic alliance agreement. And that gives Sandfire the right, basically, for any prospects that we find or projects which look very promising. it gives them the right to take over those projects under similar terms to Kalkaroo, but without the payments, and to do all the funding required to take the project through to end feasibility and to acquire an 80% interest in it. So yes, Sandfire does have the rights to any projects, promising projects in the surrounding area. And that makes a lot of sense because they're committing a lot of money to Kalkaroo. We hope that they will develop that. They'll have a big hungry processing plant there. So it makes sense for them to partner on any surrounding areas and bring that in. That's just will help us build that area. As far as Mutooroo goes, similar situation. Got Mutooroo sitting in the centre of quite a prospective area. And Hillgrove are not providing us any funding. We're sole funding that ourselves, but we do have an agreement with them that they have the first right. Anything we find there, they have the first right to be involved and help us develop it.
Yeah, that's a pretty good validation of I guess the district and also what I guess your model. So that's that sounds great. Couple of questions. Yeah, we've got a couple of questions that have come in. One looks like wants to be answered live. So I just need to. It's from a Hanako Horiai, and I will get Hanako to, let's see if I can. Okay. Hanako, you are live if you want to ask your question. I think you are live now, Hanako. Yes. Ooh. Well, looks like Hanako is. I'll move on to the next question, which is on the chat. It's how are you thinking about capital returns from the stage 1 payments from Sandfire?
Yes, that's a very topical question, which we have considered reply to, and that is that we have taken taxation, financial and legal advice on the best way to distribute some of that to shareholders, and we're working through that with experts. We're waiting for tax opinions, ATO opinions, and once we've reached the most sensible, most beneficial way to deal with that funds, we will advise the market. But at the moment, we're working through it. It takes time, but rest assured, we're getting the best advice, and we want to do that for the sake of our shareholders, so that everyone's fully informed.
Good. And related to that is, are you able to state any of the intentions you have for your Sandfire shares? And if so, is there a timeline on
that? Our intentions, well, I think Sandfire is a very well-run company. I visited one of their operations, so we're very comfortable as a general principle holding Sandfire shares. So that's point one. Point two, just relating back to what I said before, that depending on what advice we get, we may, some of those Sandfire shares may be returned. At this stage, we're still working through that. So I can't be specific about that, I'm sorry. But at the moment, we're very satisfied with our Sandfire shares. And yeah, it gives us a stake in the company that's got a stake in our Kalkaroo project.
Good. And another question that's come in is regarding exploration outside of the non-Sandfire JV areas. Are you looking to explore out? And I'll throw Hillgrove in there too. Are you looking to explore outside of, I guess, the areas that would encompass uh, I guess we'll call it geographies?
Yes, yes. Yeah, no, that's a very perceptive question. We do have quite extensive tenement holdings which are outside the Sandfire Strategic Alliance Agreement. And because of the upfront payment we received from Sandfire, which is funds entirely at Havilah's discretion, we'll be using some of those funds to explore the areas outside the Strategic Alliance, e.g. around Mutooroo, and any other tenements we've got which are not in that strategic alliance.
Are you looking at any provinces outside of Curnamona?
Well, as you probably gathered from our presentation, we love the Curnamona Province, and geologically in Australia, if you're looking at these Precambrian terrains, as I said, the Curnamona Province is very comparable in terms of prospectivity to the Gawler Craton, where you find a Lipping Dam, Carrapateena, several large copper deposits. Similarly, the Mount Isa Cloncurry Block. It was formed at the same times, the same age rocks, very similar geology, and every bit as prospective. So I don't think we'd go outside the Curnamona Province in terms of prospectivity in Australia for that type of large copper deposit. As far as going overseas, well, it's quite nice to jump in the four-wheel drive and drive 5 hours up the road to our prospect and drive home again, not to have to fly halfway around the world to some other country. So I think it would have to be really, really compelling to entice us away from the Curnamona Province. And also, as I've said, it's a highly prospective area. We've got all these prospects with potentially all-grade hits, just crying out to be followed up, walk-up drill targets. So we really want to give that a really good hit before I think we'd be diverting our money somewhere else. And also, actually, I would also say we have more than just a prospecting presence here. We actually own Kalkaroo Station, which is about 550 square kilometres. That's our exploration base. That picture I showed there of the Sandfire camp, that's on our property, and we're pretty attached to that. We don't run sheep. We run plenty of kangaroos and emus, but no sheep. It's destocked. And, we have a really strong affinity, strong base there. And that's sort of our little empire. And, that's where we like to work. So, again, for that reason, I don't think we'd be looking outside of what we've got in the Curnamona. Maybe we might look at other things in the Curnamona, but certainly not go to the other side of the world and jump on a big porphyry in Ecuador or somewhere.
Yeah. I was going to ask you if the homestead in the picture of Sandfire's camp was who gets to stay there, but
yeah, well, that's the old Kalkaroo homestead, which was built in 1908. By Mr. Lord, who was the owner of the property, and a beautiful old homestead. And one of the things we plan to do with some of our newfound funds is to actually restore the house, because it's a beautiful built of local stone off the hill behind it. And quite an amazing sort of view across the country. So, we plan to do it up. So if anyone visits us, that might be the guest house.
Okay. Good. So another couple of questions have come in as well. One is from Hanako from earlier. He wants to know. He understands that Havilah's general strategy is to expand its resource base before bringing in a partner. The question is it viable to collaborate with another company before you get to that point, before you've sort of proved out the resource more yourself?
Thank you for your question, Hanako. It's a good one, and it really gets to the point of how you can generate wealth in a small company explorer like Havilah, and how far you actually push it yourself. And that is really critical judgment. Like, do you raise heaps and heaps of money and push it right through to the end of PFS and try and develop the project yourself and go through the typical Lassonde curve, dilute shareholders, borrow a lot of money? Or do you very judiciously take it through to a certain point where it's attractive enough to get partners and attractive enough to get the sort of deal you want, and leave it at that and go and do something else? Now, we've taken the latter approach, and exactly what point you deal the project and then move on or let someone else move it along, that's the key thing, where the critical judgment has to be made. And we've been listed for 22 odd years, and we've seen a couple of major ups and downs in that time. And we're just very fortunate at this time that there is interest in copper, that other companies like Sandfire and Hillgrove are actually looking to expand their operations. They're prepared to pay a fair value for copper resources, and they're prepared to invest, and they have the funds to invest to actually see if it meets their criteria. And so we're able to negotiate a deal which we think is fair for them, it's fair for our shareholders, and will help Havilah in the future. And keeping 20% of a major project, which is essentially a carried interest, so we don't have any risk, plus getting upfront payments, we think is a very fair deal for our shareholders, because that upfront payment compensates us for all the shareholder funds we've spent over that last 20 odd years. It gives us cash today, which allows us to go and explore and do other things and maybe hand some back to our shareholders. But all is not lost, because we still have this 20% interest in the project, and that we could keep and keep the cash flow from it, or it's very saleable to our partners or elsewhere. So it's a good question. It's a very subtle balance, and it's really a matter of what you're good at. We're good explorers. We have developed a mine in the past, a gold mine, but takes a lot of work. You've got to gear up. So we think stick to what we're good at. We have a very big prospective area to explore, so let's use those funds and find the next one and just keep doing it. So that's our strategy.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you would ever consider being an operator, but it sounds like you found that really good balance between prospecting, proving up, and then partnering with someone and being a really great explorer and discoverer at the same time, and being able to find that balance between monetizing that to be able to continue doing what you're best at.
Yeah. No, it's a very fair comment, Anthony. We think of it every day of the week, and you're absolutely right, everything you said. You've got to do what you're good at and what you're comfortable with, and our DNA is exploration, and we can afford the luxury of saying, well, look, we're just going to explore because we have this large tenement holding in a highly prospective province. We've got our foot on the best part of it, which has been accumulated over many years, of course. And as an exploration geologist, I think we have a very good chance of finding more deposits. So why wouldn't you put all your effort into doing that? And that's the quickest way you can grow. Now, the other alternative is to go the development route, which many companies do, and that's a very sure way of growing wealth. We did try that at our Portia gold mine, and we found as a little company, it was a successful development, but it was just totally all-consuming of our time. And so we think there are companies like Sandfire and Hillgrove who are absolute experts at mining, building mines, operating. Why not let them do it? They have the processes, they have the people. Let them do it, and let us use some of that money and go and find the next one. So
yeah, and you can participate in the economics once they do.
yeah, that's right. We've still got 20% interest, so so it's not, we haven't completely given up on it, and we own shares in the company as concerned. So we have a double interest, and we fully believe we can find more. So why not? Let's go and do that.
Good. And the other question that's come in is regarding iron ore. Is any detail you can give regarding iron ore?
Yes. Well, our iron ore projects are a real sleeper in Havilah, and observers will notice we haven't talked about it much, but we do have very large Braemar-style iron ore deposits, and not only that, they're probably some of the best located. You can see the trains going down the railway line from the top of one of our deposits. So very, very good logistics. And yes, we really want to do something about it. It hasn't been a priority for us because we've felt with limited funds previously, we're better off to advance our copper projects, get them partnered, which now we've done. Now we have some funds, and we expect over the next year or two, we're going to divert some of those funds to actually working on the iron ore modestly, because there is interest. There are people who contact us regularly, some Chinese, Indian, other firms who are pretty keen to get their own supply. So we'll definitely be working on it and doing what we can. One of the issues we have out there with the iron ore is actually in that particular area south of the main highway, contrary to what I did say in the presentation, there is a lack of water in that particular area. Now, if we had plenty of water, we could easily beneficiate the iron ore and bring it up to a really nice 62, 63% Fe product. But we don't have the water. So that's one challenge. It's basically dry processing. But the thing that keeps us interested in the iron ore is that when you do produce a concentrate, that 63% iron, it's very low in phosphorus, aluminium, calcium, and we've been told that it's a perfect material for arc furnaces, which requires very low amounts of calcium, aluminium. So we think it will have its day one day, and we plan to invest a little bit of our funds just advancing it, seeing where it goes without going overboard.
Yeah, I was just looking at where it is on a map. It's kind of on the wrong side of Whyalla. It's a pity it's not closer to Whyalla, but anyway.
Well, the railway line does go all the way around to Whyalla, so it could be freighted around there. On the other hand, on the east side of the Gulf, we've got Port Pirie, Port Augusta, which are both cities in need of stimulus. So maybe they can be export terminals for it.
Good. I think we have a question on at least Hillgrove and Sandfire. I know it's a number of years away, but I guess what do they need to do to hit FID besides what they're doing currently? And is this all in their hands, or do you have any say in moving these projects forward?
Yep. Pre-feasibility studies are being conducted as we speak by both Hillgrove at Mutooroo and Sandfire at Kalkaroo, and they're spending their own money at a rapid rate using their expertise. So that is entirely within their hands, within their control. Of course, we have meetings and they report to us, so we know what's going on. But actually, they are driving that and running that, which is as it should be, because it's their funds and they're the experts. So they will take both of those projects through to completion of PFS, following which they will make their own decision on the investment in it. That has to occur in both cases within the next couple of years. When they have the opportunity then to say, yes, we want to go ahead, we will be making a positive decision here, we like the project, we'd like to acquire 80% of it, and they will make the second payment. So that is entirely in their hands. nothing to do with us. So naturally, we hope that the projects, that their work proves to be very positive and that they go ahead and they exercise their rights and they take 80%, and then the project goes through the normal process of financing and development. So to answer your question, it's entirely in their hands. Although, obviously we've been there a long time and we provide whatever help we can to assist them.
Yeah. Do you think that the Hillgrove Mutooroo project could actually, given the excess capacity Hillgrove has in Kanmantoo, do you think that one could end up being developed quicker than Kalkaroo?
Yeah, that would be the expectation. As I said, it's a very novel approach, trucking sulfide ore 600 kilometres down the railway line to another processing plant. But if the economics of that work, then it makes a lot of sense, because one, we don't have to build a processing plant at Mutooroo, which is a cost-saving, time-saving. We don't have to build a tailings storage facility. We don't have to worry about groundwater issues. It's basically just initially a simple quarrying operation for 5 years, an open pit, then going underground, which Hillgrove are experts at. So, yes, it should fast track if the feasibility stacks up and the economics of railing it down to their plant and processing it works, then it should greatly speed up the development of Mutooroo, no question about it. And that's one of the attractive things. And it might be that Hillgrove are very efficient operators. They run a very efficient processing, quite low processing costs. And it might be that a lot of the cost of railing the ore down there is actually covered by their very efficient processing. I'm sure they can do it far more efficiently at their plant than we could up near Broken Hill with a brand new plant. So you put all those things together, then if it works, it'll make the project go ahead a lot more quickly, less capital, less footprint, shorter permitting time, all of those things. So that's what we hope for. And that, of course, is the rationale that Hillgrove are working on with their feasibility study.
So just quickly, I think these questions can be answered very quickly, but is there any pre-treatment prior to, and I'm assuming it is rail, not semi-trailers coming down a road, not a road train down to Kanmantoo. It's rail to, and then what sort of pre-treatment can be done in Mutooroo?
Yeah. So Mutooroo is actually a massive sulfide ore, so it's just basically solid sulfide. So on the site, all we would do would be mine it and give it a primary crushing down to a reasonable size for handling. Probably go into containers, then be put on rail carriages and taken all the way down to Kanmantoo. Now, running big road trains really wouldn't work because you've got to go through or past the city, get out to Kanmantoo. But the rail, as we know, when it's optimized, it's most efficient means of transport over long distances. And it just so happens that Mutooroo is only 16 kilometres from the railway line, and Kanmantoo is right next door. So you put it in containers, take it all the way down to Kanmantoo. It can be offloaded and processed. So it's quite an efficient process, minimum handling. So there would be no upgrading or pre-treatment on site. It would just be crushing to make it more easy to handle. Yeah. And then just basically down to Kanmantoo and go through their plant.
Good. I think we've run a bit over, so I think we'll have to end there. But thanks, Chris. That's really fascinating update on Havilah and a really good description of how your business model works. If you have any last words to say before we sign off, that'd be great. Otherwise, thank you everyone for joining.
Yeah. No, well, my final words would be thank you to Sharewise for organising this, and thank you to all the attendees for your interest. And yeah, please subscribe if you have interest and keep up to date. And if you have any questions, just email me on info@Havilah. Happy to answer them. So thanks again, and thanks for your interest.
Great. Thanks, Chris, and have a good day.
Yep, the same to everybody. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.